Okay, so we'll talk today about Thom Mayne, and I don't know why there is a white. Do you see a white spacing on the right side of the screen? I talk in English because I make the presentations in English.
No, we don't see it.
The only thing we see is the Thom Mayne name in the center.
Yeah, it's very strange. I see. Okay, it's gone. Okay, so Thom Mayne, Thomas Mayne, born January the 19th, 1944, is an American architect. He's based in Los Angeles, actually in Culver City. 1972, Mayne helped found the Southern California Institute of Architecture, the famous SciArc, where a very experimental and interesting school, where he's a trustee and the coordinator of the Design of Cities postgraduate program. Since then, he has held teaching positions at SciArc, the California State Polytechnic University, Pomona, and the University of California, Los Angeles. He's principal of Morphosis Architects, an architectural firm in Culver City, California, as I mentioned. So he is considered the architect of confrontation. And sometimes I like confrontations myself. A controversy. Early in his career, Mayne became notorious for having an abusive temper, screaming at clients. None of my clients would recommend me, he later admitted. Can you imagine an architect screaming at clients? I like this. But it takes guts to be able to scream at a client. But it means he was not the slave of money and commissions. In late summer 2002, Mayne was asked by New York Magazine to contribute a proposal for the World Trade Center site, where recovery and cleanup had just ended. In discussing his plan, Mayne told an interviewer his thoughts about the September 11 attacks. I have no empathy. It doesn't make me weep. I could make a better case for justifying the terror than the other way around. Can you believe it? He's a North American and he refused to weep and he had no empathy. And he said, I could make a better case for justifying the terror than the other way around. Again, it takes guts to say something like this in the media in the United States. So this is the man. I attended once a lecture by him at Columbia University, and at the end of the lecture, Kenneth Frampton screamed at him. He had a violent reaction to Thom Mayne, but he's a very recognized architect. And Obama, for example, the former president of the United States, chose him to be the consultant in matters of architecture. And you will see a very extravagant federal building that he built in San Francisco, and he got the Pritzker Prize and so on. So he's a very, very accomplished architect. Here he is with his wife in front of their private house in Los Angeles. Here he is again. And he is also an educator and very involved with SciArc and a very progressive view about architecture, how architecture should be. And SciArc is truly an experimental ground. For example, at SciArc, the motto is to hell with regulations, with rules and regulations, to hell with rules and regulations. We are going for the unknown. Can you imagine to go for the unknown and to ignore the rules and regulations? Here he is. He wears sometimes interesting socks. The model on the left is of the famous School of Architecture in New York, the Cooper Union, which he built, just as you see the model. We are going to see it later. Here he is with a famous musician, Anderson, and yeah, drawings. He draws very, very well, very lyrically, and it would surprise you actually, because his drawings show a romantic spirit that you know, his architecture might puzzle you, because he uses, you know, a very modernistic, a slightly deconstructivist form of aesthetics, but his drawings show, I would say, a great disponibility for architectural lyricism. I like his drawings very much. In fact, so much so that once I thought that maybe I should attempt to publish a book and write a text about his drawings, the drawings of Thom Mayne. He also does artistic works like this one. This is not a sketch, but it's an artwork. Thomas Mayne. You wonder how can he do so many things, because he runs an office, he's involved with the SciArc, he teaches other schools of architecture, he had a big retrospective at the Pompidou Center in Paris, and so on. Well, he does, because when you have a creative life, a lot of things happen because of this creativity. That's why I keep telling architecture students, do artworks, express yourself, write, dance, do sculpture, write poetry, do things creatively. It's much more important than to think about, money, the obsession in capitalism, and consume. Do some beautiful drawings. This became the elevation of the Cooper Union School of Architecture. It's actually not only architecture. There is also, Cooper Union is a very interesting school. It's, to my knowledge, the only free school in the United States, but it's difficult to enter it. And it has a department of painting, a department of architecture, but it's more than a department. It's a large school, and engineering. All three of them in well, not just one building. Was an existing building, an older building, and the new one built by Thom Mayne. You are going to see, you see sculptural drawings at the Museum for Architectural Drawing in Berlin. I would like to see one day, sculptural drawings by a Romanian architect at the Museum for Architectural Drawing in Berlin. Why not? Instead of watching some irrelevant movie from HBO or Netflix on TV. So all these artworks were done by Thom Mayne. Stefan, Thom Mayne, The Beauty, the Chains, and the Self. This is a title of, I don't know, a book. Interesting title, Thom Mayne, The Beauty, the Chains, and the Self. Maybe he could have written The Beauty, Chains, and the Monster. Anyway, sculptural drawings. This is, I think, the most beautiful way to spend a life, creatively, to leave something behind you, your soul, what you are, your imagination, your intelligence, your dreaming. But this man built a lot of buildings, and you are going to see a good number of them immediately. Now, what is this? Beverly Hills, California, 1986. I don't know what this is. Maybe some kind of an office building, an early work from, almost 40 years ago. I think this year he became, 78 or 79. Or maybe I'm wrong. Was he born in 1944? I forgot. Anyway, around that age he has now. Residence in Santa Monica, California, 1988. Model. His office, as I said, is called Morphosis. So this is the name of his architecture office. But he is the founder, the boss, so to speak. Renderings, they are not working drawings, but they are investigations of the building in an artistic mode, published in Japan. As you can see there, it's probably from A+U, the famous architectural magazine. And this is the building. And it's actually his own house. You know, this offhouses.com, this is a very good website or blog, I don't know how to call it, done by a Romanian from Suceava, where you see this, just check offhouses.com. It's truly very well done. Bravo to him. So this is the house of Thom Mayne and his wife. I don't know if they have children, probably not. But you see, there are phantasmagoric things, in a way, very science fiction. It is said that a shoemaker doesn't make shoes for himself. Well, you see, in this case, it's not true. The front elevation, look at the gate on the right side, very neurotically ornamental, as I would like to put it, but I'm glad that it assumed this level. And the house is, I would say, rather interesting. Here he is, emerging from his home. And I like the informality of it all. I mean, here is open and I see boxes and whatever, you know, it's like the storage space is somehow open towards the street. Strange. It shows an unconventional appetite for life in a way. Another artwork by him. Now, Comprehensive Cancer Center, 1988, Los Angeles, California. Here I don't have great pictures, but you can still see a lot of interesting things in terms of design and in terms of space, especially for such a, you know, disturbing reality that is cancer. But why not try to, you know, in a way, fight with this terrible illness through art, through creativity, through sculpture, through architecture? Crawford Residence, 1990. Again, the very, very lyrical, I would say, drawings. They have numbers, but they have also, it's a musical sketch, if I can call it so. And you know, this fragmentation seems to be almost indecipherable, but and this is something I like. It's a large building, but it is fragmented, so it is not monolithically crushing. I have too many drawings here. I go quickly because it's a long presentation. It's an invitation for you, if you are interested, to further your you know study of this architect. Again, if you are interested, I should not have put so many drawings. But look what he does out of a large building. You don't quite understand what's going on here, and I don't either. Is it a residence? It looks like something else because it's huge. And it was built. Now he builds very large public buildings. Thom Mayne and Morphosis. You see all these intricacies. You know, this is just the corner of you know, a small part of the building. but there is richness here, there is complexity. You might almost say this medievalization of modernity, you know, this fragmentation and bringing in irrationality in a way into the corpus of modernity. That chair was also designed by him or by them, by him probably. He also designed sometimes furniture, as many other architects do. Thom Mayne. I mean, even here is an event, now an architectural event. You know, this could have been, you know, simply done, but it is not done in a simple or simplistic way, and it becomes cultural and enigmatic, like a totem. A healthcare office building, Los Angeles, 1991. Another residence at Santa Barbara, 1995, California. He began mostly with, you know, private residences, but now he builds very large buildings, maybe too large, some would say, very corporate, but he's still trying to do special things. Sun Tower in Seoul, Korea, 1997. And you can miss it because, well, there are some towers in the background, but it's this one closer to our eye, with an interesting story. I'm not going to tell it, to read it now. It's about two partners who separated, and there is a rift in the building because to express this separation, maybe two brothers or two partners, I don't remember very well, but the fragmentation of the tower connects in a way with the fragments of the commercial street, as you can see here. It would have been very easy for this tower to be crushing everything around because of its volume and its height. And it doesn't really because of these fragments. He proposed a remarkable skyscraper for Paris, and it was approved at one point, but it was not built, and I don't think it will be ever built. And it's sad because it would have been a very provocative silhouette on the sky above Paris. You'll see that project. And this is how he makes, or they make in Morphosis office, you know, they explore ideas and plans and sections in this way. I mean, they are not working drawings, but more like conceptual drawings relating, you know, the investigation of the project, of the theme, you know, plastically engaging. I suggest to you, the students here, to try something similar as well. Sometimes, maybe. You see the rift here between, it breaks the box in a way, rather dramatically. Of course, they use, you know, digital technology. Certain things cannot be done manually any longer. And they embrace the digital technologies very early on, so that they master this field brilliantly. I mean, it's all that school on the west coast of the United States. You know, Frank Gehry is from there. He is also involved with SciArc, Eric Owen Moss, Thom Mayne, Morphosis, and there are others. A high school, Pomona, California, 1999. engages architecture in the act of education. Indeed. I'm not going to read the text. Let's look at schools within a school. Again, it's about fragmentation, fragmenting the monolith into parts which communicate. I guess the individualization of the educational process and underline the importance of each individual, each student. With this street that connects the various pavilions and you know, buildings. And I like this street as a catalyst for you know, interaction. Now, of course, the pandemic complicated things, but I like to imagine that the pandemic will go away, although it didn't yet. In Germany, I read yesterday, 2 days ago, no, yesterday, there were more than 100 deaths and about 40,000 new cases. And the previous day also many new cases and many deaths in Germany and also in France. A little bit less in France, but still many. Anyway, I think this is a high school in California. Look how obsolete that bus is, the typical Brave New World school bus. And look at the buildings, they have nothing in common. Because an engaging architecture, I think, creates freer individuals. If you are schooled in a building that promotes interaction and variation, multiplicity in unity, not just unity, but also multiplicity, meaning freedom, individual freedom, freedom of expression, you develop into an individual with less fear, less inhibited, with less inhibitions. And I think that could benefit also society in turn. I'm not so sure about the materials. The materials are rather cold, you know, metallic, but yes, it's not a perfect world. Not that I'm trying to excuse him. No, I think this is a weakness. If he would have used warmer materials, maybe it would have been a positive thing. I see they have him in a stadium there. It's a big school, a very big school. University of Toronto, Graduate House, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Yesterday I talked about Dan Hanganu. Well, he didn't build in Toronto, but he built in Montreal, our countryman, and he built good buildings. And the building by Thom Mayne is in you know, here where it is written University of and then you see the street, how different it is, these buildings compared to his proposal, but I mean modern proposal with what he built. But that's because you could have harmony through contrast. Or why should we mimic the existing buildings when we can create a building that speaks about our time? And look at the whimsicality of the last O of Toronto, because you can play sculpturally, artistically with the very name of the building. Why not? And he does so, University of Toronto. And at the end, you could almost say, wow, oh, wow. And by the way of this, why not transform U-A-U-E-M into W-O-W-I-M, wow, I am. Maybe he was playing kind of, I mean, linguistically, kind of in this sense with that emphatic O at the end from Toronto. Architecture is also freedom, invention, whimsical sometimes, crazy at other times, idiosyncratic. It's okay. It's okay. Otherwise, we die of boredom. If we are all, you know, behaving and behaving and behaving kind of in a similar way. Oh, Toronto. Maybe not all people would like this, but I don't think it's the biggest sin in the world at all. Anyway. I go quickly because we have a lot to see. This man is very productive in his office, and he's flooded with commissions. You see, if you take risks and you are creative, you know, the idea that the beneficiary doesn't like creativity is not really so true. Because I think if someone gives money for a building, better receive something, you know, interesting than something uninteresting. And sometimes you can do interesting things with not so much money, actually. Anyway, another building in Austria, 2002, integrating rural and urban typologies. Interesting attempt to unite the rural and the urban. I like this. Let's see the building. I'm not reading the text. Here it is now. How it connects the rural with the urban, I don't know. I think through this fragmentation that I mentioned, because the fragmentation divides the big building into smaller parts, and the smaller parts, of course, to connect with what we call the rural. Otherwise, the building is not really rural at all. Is it exalted? To an extent, it is. Yes. And we need exaltation in culture in general and in architecture in particular. Why not? I mean, Frank Lloyd Wright created the equation creativity equals exuberance. Well, between exuberance and exaltation is not a long distance. Too bad that this grayness is not really exalted. The volumes might be, but not the chromatic palette. Although he is capable of using color too. I find the materials for my own taste a little bit cold. But fortunately, it invites dancers and acrobats and you know, other artists to create all kinds of installations or you know, shows, as in this case. And that redness was needed, in my opinion. The redness of passion. And here we have another adventurer in the same show, perhaps, you know, carefully connected with that wire, that cable, because otherwise you can imagine. But you see, an engaging architecture suggests engagement, you know, suggests taking adventurous postures and so on. Banal block of flats would never make you do this sort of thing. It would not inspire it towards something like this. But too much glass for my taste, too much metal, too much grayness. That's my opinion. With all due respect for Thom Mayne, something that his drawings show seems to be missing in the. But the complexities are still here. The you know the intricacies, the surfaces, the volumes that interact, and but the materials, in my opinion, are problematic. And this I can see in some other works. Although in his private residencies, I think he avoided this. Uh, this is a federal building. I don't know exactly what it is, but look, he introduces these large, you know, numbers in this case, or letters in the case of Toronto, California Department of Transit or Transport, whatever is there hidden. Science Center School, Los Angeles, 2004. Dissolve the boundaries between the building systems and the ground. A breaking frontiers is a good thing in general. So is this long building in the foreground? We see it from above. The silhouettes with the red are necessary in this rather grayish metallic environment. Fortunately, we have plants and they're always beautiful and welcome. Very much so. And the children who are also welcome. And this is probably not a school for the well-to-do, but I'm glad that they built it. University of Cincinnati, the Student Recreation Center. This one I saw with my own eyes. Weaving as a means for establishing flow. I like the wording and I like even more the drawing. But something from the drawing seems to be lost in his drawings are very lyrical, very poetical. Truly they are. And very cryptical. If you don't know what they are about, they are difficult to understand, but you can appreciate them visually. So, it's a building part of the University of Cincinnati students campus. They were clever. They engaged commissioned some important architects. Bernard Tschumi has a building there, even Michael Graves. Peter Eisenman built the School of Architecture. Thom Mayne, this building that we look at. So now they have one of the most interesting architecturally speaking, student campuses in the world because of this. An interesting idea now to have this place where you can eat, but you can also look through the window at the sports space or sports arena that you can access visually. So it's really, about dissolving boundaries. Public housing in Madrid, in Spain, 2006, an interesting labyrinthical housing complex, very unconventional, a typology of porosity to realize social ideals. I like this wording, a typology of porosity to realize social ideals. And it's, it's very, well, on one way, Mediterranean and, labyrinthical. I mean, how many housing complexes in the world look like this? Because this is what he did. I still have some, reservations about the materials employed, but all in all, is a very interesting, because these narrow passages and pathways within the labyrinth create great occasions for interaction and intimacy, And so it's a very unusual housing complex, you know, rather horizontal and labyrinthical. So again, we are dealing with fragmentation. Too wide for my taste, but that is my taste. I mean, this visceralization of architecture through fragmentation, I think, would have benefited from chromatic fragmentation too, and unfortunately, it's too monochromistic or monochrome, I guess. And there seems to be a contradiction. But if Persian rugs and clothes to you know get dry, although I imagine they have you know dryers, electrical dryers, but I think that's exactly what is needed. If in these spaces you see you know clothing being put out to dry on a string, and well, when the vegetation will grow and maybe have even some graffitis of a rebellious young person there on the white wall, I think it would be very welcome, in my opinion, because the, the architecture is interesting and valid, but this excessive whiteness for me is a little bit oppressive in its so-called purity. But there are so many, you know, possibilities to look at various things all the time, and maybe the pictures were taken at the beginning. Now, if people take out, you know, a chair, a plant, a table, two people playing something, maybe a ping pong table and so on, who knows? Now, the courthouse in Eugene, Oregon, 2006, I don't know. I mean, it's a building that courthouses in general, with the exception of those great by Sir Richard Rogers, turn me off. And this one too, somehow, you know, he claimed in his writing that he wanted to create an architecture that is not authoritarian, but I don't know if he succeeded in doing that. It's too metallic and too, again, too cold, in my opinion, mainly because of the materials he used. The volumes, the penetrations in, you know, the fragmentations and all the rest are okay, maybe, but the materials are cold. But the artwork here, but he didn't do the artwork, I imagine, or I don't know. It's, well, it could lead you to some form of pessimism, perhaps, or I don't know, maybe the opposite, you know, that you are lay down you open up truth, and then you display it in this way, in a non-dogmatic way. I don't know what the symbolism of the artwork might be, but the building itself is, I wish, you know, I would have no need to enter this building. Some wood here. But I like this opening into the wall, you know, just a narrow window opening into the wall through which you can, you know, take a look at who knows what. San Francisco Federal Building. Now, this one has a peculiarity. This building, if I remember correctly, the elevator stops at a certain floor. You cannot arrive with the elevator at all floors. You have to alternate between taking the elevator and walking up and down the stairs here and there, which is very interesting. And I'm surprised a federal building would assume something like this. This is it, San Francisco, a federal building, meaning built for the government. So you see the elevator doesn't stop at all floors. So you have to both take the elevator and walk up and down the stairs. I kind of like the idea. Center for Astronomy and Astrophysics at the California Institute of Technology, Pasadena, California, 2009. Some drawings. Lots of fragmentation here as well. Although he was not considered a deconstructivist and he was not in the exhibition Deconstructivism in New York, but he has elements of, but he's not truly a deconstructivist, but a fragmentalist, maybe. He fragments, and there is a gesture of deconstruction in this as well. But the interior, I like more the exterior than the interior. The interior with all this whiteness, you know, which is not really an expression of purity, is because viscerality is not, cannot be white, and the movement of the parts seems to suggest visceral, you know, divulging of what is inside the building, but that cannot be so whitish in my opinion. Although there are interesting things here, actually very interesting. Some of them more interesting than others. Maybe students in architecture with a professor, or architects investigating a building by Thom Mayne. This is a long presentation. I'm beginning to regret I chose to present him now, but I felt I had a debt towards him. I can talk about Peter Chelsing, the Swedish architect, tomorrow. It's still an interesting building, this one, I would say, with these wrinkles on the facade. The sabotaging the box in whatever way possible. National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, Satellite Operation Facility, Maryland, 2007. It has something of, I don't know if oceanic atmospheric administration, but it has kind of a horizontal exaltation, and with those antennas or whatever they are at the top, having the dialogue, the vertical dialogue made possible. A gray exaltation, a metallic exaltation. And these balconies that are created just for contemplating perhaps the horizon. They don't have another function. Sorry about the resolution there. He also made very, very nice books. I have two of them. So the books with the works of Morphosis and the Thom Mayne are very well done. And they are inspirations in terms of the richness of the images and the text and the drawings, and done in a very almost poetical way. I like the books that I have. Now we arrive at the building of Cooper Union, a very special school of architecture. It's a school for the advancement of science and art in New York. But as I said, one school belongs to architecture, one to painting, and one to engineering. And it's very difficult to enter. Very capable students get in through a difficult exam, but it's free. A stacked vertical piazza organized around a central atrium. And this is the building in Manhattan, Lower Manhattan. Kenneth Frampton hates it, but I was here. I wouldn't say I hate it. In the back is less spectacular than in the front. I have some problems, especially in the inside, but the front elevation doesn't bother me at all. Like in the case of other buildings by him, I think the building here, the interior would benefit from some graffitis, some colors, some textiles, some, you know, accidents, if you want to call them so. But the idea to have this long, you know, difficult perhaps stair going all the way up, but also serve as some kind of amphitheater where people sit down and read and talk and so on. It's not bad. Look through books, look through, because, you know, these are lovers of culture and creativity. We are talking about a very famous school. Cooper Union was considered at one point when John Haydock was its dean, the best architecture school that offered a bachelor degree in the world, not just in the United States, with famous professors, Peter Eisenman, Elizabeth Diller, Riccardo Scofidio, and so on. But again, in my opinion, too much whiteness. Fortunately, the people are not dressed in white. Although maybe if everybody was also dressed in white, would have been, you know, the surreal effect would have been amplified. Something is missing. But I mean, this could have been a Piranesian space, and actually it was a Piranesian space during the construction, when it was not finished, finalized. And I hope I have some images. I like more that than what I see now. But that's my subjectivity. I'm not saying I'm correct. I'm just saying what I feel and what I think. But the beauty of the street with its imperfections, with people with the canes, people with troubles like everywhere in the world, real people crossing the street, the grayness of the street, the cars, the, you know, the life of the street makes you hope that life continues. This is an image during the construction, and I like it more than the final work, because some of the struggle of building it disappeared in the final work. I would have left it like this, but I don't know if those who, you know, commissioned the work would have accepted it. Although for such an unconventional school like Cooper Union, perhaps would have been more appropriate, but also more dangerous. But then I imagine many of these people who study here and teach here would agree with Nietzsche, who said, live dangerously. What if the school was left at this stage, just like this? What would have happened? And like this, a work in progress. This was, you know, one of the initial drawings. I think he won a competition, and it was built because he won it. And drawings, digital drawings for the final work, themselves appealing visually. Now, the Perot Museum of Nature and Science, interesting pair, nature and science. Dallas, 2012, a didactic tool for demonstrating scientific principles at work. Okay, let's see, is this one, this building here. The cube, but with a special artificial landscape here done, I think, with stones found in this area. And I like the appearance of this other material, and also the irregularities, the romanticism of the stone itself. But the interior, again, it's something else, as opposed to Frank Lloyd Wright, who brought the stones on the site where the falling water building was built inside the living room. Thom Mayne didn't do this in this, large museum. Welcome to color. I'm all for it. Whiteness, grayness, and the city behind. A sketch. I don't know who put that criminal stamp on the drawing. Dallas Museum Nature Science. Can you believe it? This is a good drawing. Why should it be ruined by that archival, notation? So aggressively done. This reminds me of my own drawings when I crossed the ocean. I ran out of the country, and then my wife came to the States, and she had to go with my drawing through, I don't know where she went, and they put a stamp, but at least they put the stamps in the back of the drawings, that they were not, secrets of the country or anything, but just some artistic sketches and so on. But they all had a stamp in the back. But here they put a stamp, on the drawing, almost on the lines of the drawing, and in red. It's very, very insensitive, because the drawing is so lyrical and sensitive. How could you do something like this? Bill and Melinda Gates Hall. I almost read hell. Cornell University, Ithaca, New York, 2013, activating educational spaces with movement, light, and transparency, and money, of course, because Bill Gates, as you know, is not one of the poorest men in the world. I don't know what to think of this Bill Gates also. One day he and his wife launched a competition for the condom of the future. Can you believe it? I mean, this is what is needed for the future of the world. Yeah. So Mayne for Bill Gates and Melinda Gates, but I don't know if they are together any longer. I think they got divorced. I like the color. Do you see the power of color? All of a sudden, you feel that life is possible again because of the color. Otherwise, all that grayness and whiteness and blackness. Emerson College, Los Angeles Center, 2014. A college campus condensed into an urban site. Okay, let's see it. The taking over of the world by man, by Anthropocene, Anthropos. We see ornament, right? Because what else do we look at on the left side and the center? It's ornament. That's what it is. But otherwise, despite the exasperation of playing with volumes and so on, it's still cold. It's a cold environment. This is my opinion. But I like this skin, this, well, it's a metallic embroidery in a way. Maybe he did this after he did a project for Paris, where, for that skyscraper, which I'm going to show. And here is an echo of that arch built in La Défense in Paris. But as I said, I like this screen, you know, because it is it brings down the scale of the building to something more you know, closer to who we are. Too much grayness, too much metal for my taste. But my taste is not the only one in the world, so we move forward. Fortunately, we still have some trees, but cars, and highways. Well, you know, the United States, but it's not just the United States. The whole world is like this today. Fortunately, the drawings show a sensitivity that gives me hope. What is this? Another, I don't know what it is, but this reminds me of the egg that Stefan Dorin built in Craiova for Brâncuși. Thom Mayne. I don't know when he received the Pritzker Prize, some good number of years ago, about 15 years ago or so. I don't know exactly. Now, this is the project that I mentioned, the Far Tower, which was approved, but for some reason it didn't, it was not built in Paris. Drawing on the power of parametric scripting, the design of the Far Tower gathers disparate programmatic, physical, and infrastructural elements from the requirements of the building and synthesizes these into a form that seamlessly integrates the building into the idiosyncrasies of its site while expressing multiple flows of movement. In the spirit of the Paris exhibition competition proposals, the tower embodies state-of-the-art technological advances to become a cultural landmark. And this is the proposal. And you see now, that's why I mentioned the arch at La Défense, because what he did for that college is very similar. But then, of course, there are complications inside, but this, I think it was influenced by Paris. Anyway, the tower he proposed, I think, was interesting and valid, and with a schismatic duality, you are going to understand it. On one hand, you know, organic in terms of the fluidity of the shape, and on the other, in the back, actually flat and Cartesian, you see. So this duality might seem to be problematic, but maybe it says something about the schismatic nature of today's life. And it has complexity, and it would have been very interesting if built, but it was not built. Although, as I said, it was approved. I don't know what happened. Thom Mayne and Morphosis, because he didn't work alone, of course. Now we see here, you know, the reference to the eternal point of reference in Paris, that is Tour Eiffel. So Tour Eiffel has 296 meters from the ground. Well, no, 396 his tower from the ground, and Tour Eiffel 325. But Thom Mayne's tower doesn't go higher than Tour Eiffel, which I think is a sign of respect towards l'ingénieur Eiffel. Morphosis unveils wild new design for a hotel to be built on the infamous Viper Room site on Sunset Strip. And it is indeed an infamous proposal. I don't know what this Viper room is, but you will see the building that they proposed, and it might be built. Is this one? Can you imagine? It has something of a Viper. Now, I don't know the story, the narrative behind this so-called infamous Viper room site, but the building he proposed also has the similar dualities with what we saw previously, because he did both this building and this building. In fact, it's one building, but with two different sides, two different architectures, very, very different. Now you might say that Thom Mayne suffers of bipolar disorder. It's possible, like many of us these days. We are schismatic beings, trapped in the tensions of high capitalism and so on. Will it be built? I don't know, but it's possible. Anything is possible. So one building seems to honor ecology and sustainability and green, and the other one is indeed kind of like a viper that jumps on this one. It's almost like a metaphor of man jumping on the, although this is Cartesian and this is a little bit more organic, but there is some aggressivity here coming from the left towards the right, but then there is a built-in aggressivity in a way in this too, because it is Cartesian, and we know the excesses of reason. I don't know. I mean, we could interpret it in various ways, but still, again, it's a striking proposal, maybe too striking for some people. Anyway, now we go to Cologne, one and only tower of South Korea. It was built, and here we see again, these are huge. I mean, we see them as kind of some kind of embroidered elements on this facade, but I have images with a human being near them, and you realize how big they are. But I welcome again the return of the ornament, because they are ornamental. So ornament should not continue to be absent from architecture, because of parametry and scripting and programming is having, I would say, a significant return in architecture. But you see how big they are. If we consider again the silhouette in red, which is probably, a strategy that Morphosis uses for taking their pictures. All the, feminine characters in some of the photographs are dressed in this way, in red. And redness represents, color, life, blood, fire, the sun, passion. Red again, on a background of cold grayness. And the ornaments, the ornaments which are huge, like bigger than a human being. But look at the geometry. Without the high technologies of today, this would have been impossible to make. You say that it's a, superficial, clothing of the building with unnecessary materials. That's what the functionalist would say. Functionalists died 100 years ago, actually. We are building new ways of working. Morphosis explores extra R and the future of design technologies. While some people still work with the T-square and the rectangle. Now, who is exploring or imploring here God, perhaps, externalized through light? There is here some kind of imploration, I say, some kind of a attempt to have a dialogue with the above, with the unnamed, with the unmeasurable. So I am inclined to interpret it in spiritual terms, maybe mystical terms, maybe religious terms. So let's wish him happy birthday for the 11th of for the 19th of January. Thank you.